Now, these numbers might be slightly off. When we were down in Kentucky, there are a lot of people hunting that first opener. That's the velvet time. People want to shoot velvet. I don't really care about velvet too much. Dylan, do you?
I would love to kill a buck in velvet, but I'm not gonna stress over it. Someday it'll happen.
There's people that I really experienced that there'll be a 170 that could come out. That's a 175-year-old. They'd rather shoot a 155-inch 4-year-old that was in velvet. And I'm looking at it like, man, the older buck, the bigger buck, I'll take that. But we saw some smaller bucks shot down in Kentucky that were in velvet. And it was those people, after they get them and they're close to them, they're kind of like, oh, that's a little smaller than I thought. But it was full of velvet. They get wrapped up in the velvet fever and they shoot it. And we did see that. But bottom line down there, when we were in Kentucky, is that I think these numbers are correct. 30 opportunities. There were 2 misses. So that takes it down to 28 deer that were hit. 26 recovered deer out of 28. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been perfect, but there is a failure rate with all this stuff. It's not an exact science. And one of those deer they think was a bone hit deer that would live. And they verified that within a few days. And one, they actually called a dog in, which we'll talk about the next day, and ended up going 5.5 miles with it. And it's a complete mystery of why that deer was not dead 24 hours later. And that was one of the 2 that was wounded. So out of the 26 that were recovered, one wasn't, but it was also living a few days later, hopefully recovered fully. But bottom line is, there's really high numbers. And so Alex down there, the outfitter, they have some standard steps they go through, and it mirrors what we do. And that's why over a long period of time, I know I have not recovered a few deer out of 150 to 175. I don't even know what the number is. But you look at 4, 5, 6 not recovered versus 150, 160 shot, or 170, whatever that number is. Bottom line is, there's a way that you can get it down to almost an exact science. And I feel like I've heard of people losing way too many deer and in a row, over and over again. It's just, it just doesn't have to happen. And we can talk about shot selection, making sure that you're patient, practicing. But a lot of that, I'm not saying you want to have a badly or poorly hit deer, but if you make good choices afterwards, you should find that deer nearly 100% of the time. So I'm not saying you shouldn't practice. I'm not saying that you shouldn't choose great shots. You should. I think sometimes with the heavy arrow, people are looking at, well, I could just go right through that bone. Very, very bad thing. I'm getting great penetration, so I'll take a bad shot. I'll take a quartering 2 shot. You even see that on the line. I'll look at some of these shots and be like, man, it's one thing, we all make bad shots. But to purposely shoot a quartering towards your deer at 30 yards because you have a, quote, heavy arrow and it's going to penetrate, you're just one glance off or one couple inches away from glancing off a shoulder, even if you do. So bottom line is, that's all important, shot selection. But when you hit that deer, what are you doing afterwards? And that's the whole problem of this. And I really want to help you recover deer. I want to have you hit those high rates of recovery, that over 90%, 95%. I want to have you hit 100, but hit location. Here's the bad thing. Where did you hit that deer? You know how many people I've heard say it was a double lung, smoked them, and then you get up and they hit it right in front of the hindquarters? Everyone thinks they shot a double lung. When you talk about it, yeah, smoked them, double lung, right above the heart, whatever. How do you know for sure? Now, we have it on video. We have our little DJIs. We actually that's one of the reasons we bring our Reveal cameras into the stand is, we want to share our hunts. It's a cell cam. We put it up there. When you move your bow to grab it off the holder, sets it off. We're usually sitting down and shooting to our left anyways. So it works perfect for bow here. Camera's facing towards your shot. When you pick up the bow, move it, it sets off the camera. It's on 30-second delay or 30-second video, 0 delay. And we turn them on just to hunt, and we watch each other's hunts, but recovery, knowing exactly where we shot. Play it over and over again. Get down by frame, take screenshots, awesome. Then We've had deer and a bear this year that is running away, and it looks like a dune buggy. The arrow's sticking almost all the way out. Illuminoc, whatever kind of knock you're using is glowing, running away, and you look, man, I hardly got any penetration. But when you look at the video, you see it went all the way to the other side and came back out. And so that's one thing. But direction, the angle that it's going in, you can look at these and figure out your hit location if it's on film. If not, it's just a guess unless you hear it fall, see it fall. So always be safe. And here's why. Because the type of blood you have, yes, stinky, chunky, it's guts, watery, it could be intestine, if it's dark blood, it could be liver, bubbly blood. But what about if you heart shot is blood? There's a difference between all these, but what if you made a decent shot, deer moved, it went in like a guts area, somehow came out through the heart. You look at it like, man, this arrow looks pretty clean. I got, great. If the guts are mixed with the shot, you might have had what appears like guts on the arrow and you got a heart shot because it passed through the heart after the guts. Or, you just look at, there's a lot of complexities with that, and it makes it confusing at times. What I want to talk about, though, that's most important, you can try to identify it on the arrow. There's some pretty good ways to do that. And then when you're following blood, you can do that pretty well too. Always think about if it's watery blood and it's an intestine, and you only got intestines, that could take 2 days to die. We've seen a deer that was intestine shot that took 3 days to die. It was still alive, unfortunately. Horrible. It's not good. And we're going to talk about some of this ugly stuff here. I don't like to talk about, but you have to be realistic. We have to know that this is not an exact science. You can get it up to that 95 to 100% recovery, but you have to follow these steps. So you have to be conservative. If it's intestine, it could take 2 or 3 days. Low liver, Dylan the Diego buck, low liver, what, it'd take a day and a half for him to die. He laid up within 200 yards, 150 yards. Right. He probably would have been there if we waited a day. But you think liver? It looked like it was almost heart. It was really a tough one. But when that happens again, you never know. You just have to know that, a center liver shot, it could be 45 minutes. Guts could be 5 hours. And so if you have that chunkiness on the blood, I've really never had one that went over 5 hours in that case. And we've given them that time to die. So the point is, if you give them the time to die, they're going to be where they're at. They're 150 yards, 100 yards. If there's extreme thick cover, they might only go 50 yards and lay up. If you get out of the stand too soon and they hear you, if you walk to the arrow halfway and they know you're coming, they know that what is going on, they can associate with you, they're going a quarter mile, half mile. And they're doing that and they're not stopping. Their adrenaline starts pumping. They recognize that you're the predator, you're after them, and they're going to run. They're going to run a long ways. And that's where a lot of recovery efforts fail, because that initial push, you go too far and grab your arrow. Now, if they go over a hillside, around a corner, through some thick swamp where you can actually walk to that arrow and that deer can't see you, then you can take a chance, going over and look at the arrow, look at it. But again, going back to, think of these recovery times. If you spook that deer, it's an intestine shot, gut shot. The problem is they don't bleed much after that. After that initial, they sit down, lay up. They don't bleed a lot, and that's a big problem. So always think about that recovery time versus you going in and getting that deer, and when you should go in, the patience you should exercise. And that's why I say it's an overused phrase, when in doubt, back out. And I might have seen it, Dylan, I don't know about you, but I started seeing that a long time ago, and I probably saw it on a Drury Brother video about 20 years ago. And so I don't know if they came up with the name or where it came from, but it's decades going back.
I don't know.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
When in doubt, back out. You worry about coyotes. Well, if you don't give them time to die, it doesn't really matter anyways. You're going to spook it. You're not going to find it. All of a sudden your odds of finding it go from 98% to 2% because you spooked them that one time. Really, really difficult. One of the things, think about all these recovery times. I think Jen's bear this year was a good illustration. My buck in Kentucky was a good illustration. You can see some guts hanging out of where the arrow was coming out of my buck in Kentucky. It was a really good quartering away shot. And so Jen's bear, quartering away. When you have a quartering away shot, quite a bit better than a broadside shot. and your ability to hit multiple organs. So let's say you did get intestine. Let's say the worst of the worst, you get your intestine, that's a couple days, potentially. But you hit the guts, that's a 5-hour thing. Those two combined to me are catastrophic. That's an hour or less. If you hit low liver, that could be a couple days, guts and intestines, catastrophic to a deer. It's one thing for their system to manage one bad hit, but when you put 2 or 3 of those together, this is catastrophic failure. It's not just one portion of your body and your body staying alive, fighting this. Now it's 3 or 2. So when you have a quartering away shot and that's going through, and the problem is quartering 2, you have a lot of bone exposed on that front side. So yeah, you might get one lung, liver, and intestine, but if you're off just a little bit on a quartering towards shot, you're hitting the outside of the shoulder and you might only get one lung. Well, one lung, folks, is that deer can live. It really can live. I heard someone on a discussion forum about lungs. Tony Romo, quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys back, 15 years ago, maybe somewhere around there, 12 years ago. He's announcer now. He punctured a lung while he's playing. I think he played for over half the game with a punctured lung. So think about a deer. If Tony Romo can play over a half of a football game with a punctured lung, what do you think a deer can do? The point is they can survive. They can heal. That lung, that tissue can heal itself. But think about those recovery times. When in doubt, back up, back out. That's why there's that saying there. And I'll add, when it gets down to people worry about coyotes and predators, there's been a lot of times where I've left my jacket, hat, clothing near where a deer was hit, to the point where I'm not going too far where they can see me, I can spook them, but I'm going to leave that clothing near, because most of the time when those coyotes smell you, they're gone. You remember those 2 does we left in Coon Valley overnight because it was late and it was really cold?
Yes.
There's coyote tracks going towards those deer, and then they just peeled off because we left clothing around and on top of the deer. And they buggered up. When I was running beagles up in the UP in Michigan, we had snowshoe trails that we would sometimes run the beagles up to 70 times in 1 year. And there'd be a network of snowshoe trails. We would see coyotes come into that trail just walking in, and then they're running away. They'd hit where we'd just been rabbit hunting, smell us, and just take off. I often thought that the more we hunted out there, we didn't shoot the rabbits in that location, because if we shot them where we lived on our hunting land, it was amazing how we could just clean them out with good dogs. They didn't live in holes up there in the UP, those hares. So you could really wipe them out. But bottom line is, when those predators would come in, they hit that scent trail and just take off and run. And so it's the same with you navigating that. And again, if that's a deer, rarely do you need to go in after them. The exception is you just really catastrophic injury on a shoulder, hind quarter, and that deer is really slow, and you can basically keep up with them and put them down. That's a different story. Drones can be incredible. That's one of the reasons down in Kentucky they have such a good recovery rate, because if there's any question, they just fly the drone over and look for the deer they just shot. They can see if it's dead. They can see if it's alive. If it's dead and it's in a CRP field that's 80 acres with 5-foot tall growth, they can see the blood trail and the dead deer laying there in the middle of the growth after dark. They can mark spots, have people go in the next day. They can GPS coordinate. So there's really no reason ever to go in too soon to a deer, and that's a big no-no. Those guides know that down there, and there's more than a dozen that are taking people out to stands in that opening week. I think 18 that are taking people out to stands, and they know not to go in too soon. That's a big no-no, because that guide Alex wants to have high recovery rates and success for his clients. He had well over, I think, 55, 60% success on his clients in that first week. It's a really high success. I know, and that's part of it. You can use drones down there. Drones aren't always legal. I think in Minnesota, they're not going to be legal till 2026, which is a shame, because they help recover deer. If you're going to be unethical about it, I would think you're going to be unethical about a lot of other things. I've heard game conservation officers tell me that most of the time when they find one person that's doing something wrong, and they have a infraction in one area, they're going to have a violation. They're usually writing 3 tickets, 4 tickets. It's interesting. We ran into the game wardens out in Canada, and they said 95% of the people they pull over, we got pulled over twice this year out on the lake. Super nice people. Davis is one of them. He's a super nice CO up there where we go. And we talked to Davis the one time for quite some time, and I haven't been pulled up there in 11 years, and it was twice this year. And so pretty cool to talk to those guys. They said that 95% of the people they check have 0 violations. And out of those, the people that do have violations, at 2 or 3% literally had no clue that they were doing anything wrong. It was totally innocent, total mistake. They were very apologetic. But then there's that 2 or 3% out of the 100% that are bad. They're just, and those are the ones not enough lake preservers, over limits, undersized fish. They just start writing tickets, and they're usually doing something wrong. I think when it comes to drones, they are incredible if used properly. If you can legally, a drone is an incredible option. Now, dogs are an option too. I know a lot of people this year that have recovered deer with dogs. The outfitter Alex down there, that was the next step. Bring a dog in after the drone. So they bring the dog in. Went 5.5 miles. They said, we need to give up on this deer. We're just pushing it over and over again. It was 24 hours later. And so dogs can be a great option. I love watching dogs work too. But if that deer is not dead, the adrenaline that is produced, no different than you spooking that deer from a dog, that dog can just keep pushing it. But typically what I found is if it's a good dog and it's dead, they'll find it. It's pretty awesome. So dogs are a great option. Drones are a great option. And I think we owe it to the deer. And you can't just say, well, and this is something you hear, Dylan, you probably heard this. Man, I should probably pay the money to get a dog. It's a really nice buck. Well, what about if it's a doe? What about if it's a young buck, small buck? Don't you still have the same responsibility to be ethical?
For sure.
And so, but have you heard that before? It's kind of like, well, I wouldn't have taken that shot, but it was a really big buck.
I've definitely heard that.
And I've heard it the opposite.
Yeah.
I didn't take that shot because it was a really big buck. But either way,
it's totally different mentalities. That animal deserves your best no matter what.
Yes. And that's what it boils down to with all of this.
Can I give a couple shout outs here real quick?
Yeah, you sure can.
So if you're looking for drone guys, there's 2 guys that I would recommend if you find yourself in that unfortunate scenario.
I will too.
All right.
If it's not the same guy.
Good buddy of mine, Aaron Skripchek. In Wisconsin, and I see that he does Missouri as well. It's LTL Drone Deer Recovery. Great dude, works hard. I will watch his page on this stuff and see how successful it is. Super interesting. Tyler Reedy, Western Wisconsin.
I was just going to say Tyler. Tyler, awesome I've met. He is awesome.
Super good dude, very professional.
Yeah.
Knows his equipment very well.
Yep, Tyler. I'm sure both of them are great, but Tyler, I've been around, and he's a great dude.
One more I want to give a shout out to, and I have never personally met this guy, but I follow his page. He's local to where I live, and I've heard great things, is Dustin Linsmeyer, Trails End Deer Recovery. He has a dog named Scout. I follow along on their Facebook. It is incredible.
Those dogs are awesome.
It's very, very impressive.
And I can't even remember. Michigan, there's a guy that I can't think of his name, and it's really bothering me. He's been doing it for decades. And if I remember, I'll put it down in the description.
If you find yourself in that scenario, please do everything in your power to recover that animal.
Yeah.
It's realistic.
And a lot of it goes back to hit location, type of blood, recovery time. If you give it enough time to die, they will not be that far. They have no reason when they're sick to go a half mile until you spook them. And I don't like when people say it never bedded down. So it never bedded down. So it was okay to push it 4 miles. It never stopped. It probably did. A lot of times when they stop, they just stand. They'll just stand there for a half hour. And so when you push it, you think, well, it never bedded down. It wasn't mortally hit. No, it was just that you pushed it. Bedding down. Sometimes they're falling down, bedding down. Sometimes they're not. And so you don't always notice the bed. You're off the blood trail just a little bit. You think you're going to be flattened down leaves, there's going to be a big pool of blood. No, it was already clotted up. And so when it laid down, it left hardly any imprint. So, always think about that. And that's how we keep our recovery rates really, really high, is just giving it time to die, not pushing it. And if you do those 2 things, you'll always find them, unless it's a non-mortally wounded deer. And in that case, that's a really good thing. We looked till the middle of the night on one of mine for Kentucky last year. It ended up being a non-mortal mortally wounded hit and deer. And I went back a month later and ended up shooting that deer, and he was fully recovered by that time. Sat 9 times, 11 times for that buck overall. I can't remember. And it was, a 5 or 6 week odyssey and journey, and it was pretty awesome. But at the same time, don't know what happened on the shot, but it went way forward, hit right in the front of the brisket area, just hit bone and muscle, and really bad shot. But at the same time, I was really happy he was alive. And, you still look. We actually came back the next morning with the drone looking. So not only did we look till the middle of the night with 5 or 6 people, we came back the next morning and looked with the drone, and just felt confident he was alive. But bottom line is, you owe it to the game to do your best in all this. And I think if you do that, it'll be amazing, and you follow these tips, how high of a percentage your recovery rate will be. Yeah, I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Your followers really appreciate and taking the time. I wanted to mention we have our last minute food plots you can check out at Pure Wildlife Blends. We have a lot of different seed varieties, especially our fall power greens. We have ways to establish clover this time of year, rye, a lot of different goodies. We also have our client visits. We've already started scheduling for this year, December through next August. So there's 5 of us going to client properties. Make sure you check that out. And then finally, our books and web classes. They're great Christmas presents this time of year is when they really start to sell. So really appreciate you watching. Just check out Whitetail Habitat Solutions, or for this food plot seed company, PureWildlifeBlends.com. Thank you.